you ready to retire? What questions do you want to ask yourself before you take the plunge? That's what today's show is all about, and I'm extremely excited about this show because I have a little personal reference. Welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Joe Anderson. I'm a certified financial planner, president of Pure Financial Advisors, and I'm with, of course, this show would not be Your Money, Your Wealth without the big man, Big Al Clopine. He's sitting right over there. You know, when you look at retirement, you have to ask yourself some questions. My mother recently retired, and I sat down with my mother and I said, Ruthie, you're retiring. Are you ready? And then she looked at me and she's like, Joe, I am so ready. I'm so ready. And I go, Mom, that sounds pretty emotional. Let's talk about the finances. And she's like, oh, let's just go grab lunch. And I was like, Mom, you're retiring in 2 months. Are you ready for this? And she looks up into the sky and she's like, well, I think I have this in my 401k. I might get this from Social Security. Yes, I think I'm good. And I was like, Mother, what about health care? What about taxes? What about travel? What about everything else? And she's like, oh my God, can we just have a cocktail already? You have to ask yourself specific questions before you go into retirement. That is today's Financial Focus. Look at the stats. First question you got to ask yourself, do you have cash to provide yourself a lifestyle that you're accustomed to? Most people are nowhere near this number. If you look at most Americans, I mean, what? Almost 60%, almost 70% of Americans have less than $50,000 saved. That is not going to be enough money to produce the lifestyle that you want long term. You need to get organized. You need to start asking yourself some specific questions on how ready are you for retirement? Do you have enough money? And what other combinations of strategies that you can use today to make sure that you are on track? To help us with this, let's bring in the big man. Alan, what was that, 70% of people, something close to that, have less than $50,000?
Are woefully prepared. And a lot of people know they're unprepared, but they don't even want to look at it because they put their head in the sand because they hope it'll fix itself somehow.
Right. It's like, oh, I know I don't necessarily have enough, but something will happen.
Right.
Right? My mom's case, she's probably just going to live with me.
Well, I think that was how your mom. That's how your mom solved the travel plans.
Yes, exactly.
I'm going to come visit Joe for 4 months a year in the winter because she lives in Minnesota.
It's so much fun.
Which I think, by the way, I think that's a great plan. Why not? If you've got a son that you adore, as Ruthie adores Joe, why not go visit him for 4 months at a time? Anyway, let's get into some of the questions that we're going to try to answer, the questions that you should be asking yourself. The first one is, can I afford to retire? So let's get into that and look at dollars and cents. And then how about when should I take Social Security? That's an important one because a lot of people are making mistakes on when to claim their benefits. How about reducing taxes in retirement? You know, there's a lot of ways to reduce taxes, but there's a lot of ways, if you're not careful, you pay a lot more than your fair share. So we'll take a look at that. Medical costs. No one knows exactly what their medical costs are going to be, but do you have a plan for those? And then finally, and here's a big one, here's the emotional one. How are you going to spend your time? Are you going to have enough purpose and meaning? What's going to get you out of bed in the morning? And actually, maybe we'll get right into that because our own Lynn Stewart went out and asked many of you what you are going to be doing in your retirement.
Retirement dreaming? You're not alone.
We've set aside enough money to travel and enjoy life.
I play golf and I like to travel and looking to go to Europe.
65% of people looking toward retirement say traveling is on their bucket list. 56% say they look forward to spending more time with friends, and 49% say they look forward to pursuing a hobby. The biggest fear in retirement might surprise you. More than 50% say they're afraid they'll outlive their savings, followed by concerns about their health failing and leaving them with a need for long-term care. Most people say they expect to live longer and work longer. 68% say they'll live to be 80 years old or older. 39% say they feel they'll make it to 90 or older. A new Transamerica Center for Retirement survey of workers shows 2/3 of baby boomers plan to work past age 65, and some say they don't plan to retire at all. The hard numbers show more people don't have the money they need to fully retire, so they actually are working into their retirement. In 1985, about 11% of people worked past retirement age. At the last tally, that number is up to 19%. Regardless of what your vision for retirement looks like, you can increase your chances of having the retirement you're dreaming of by putting a retirement plan in place.
It's all on the plan. It's all laid out with like a 5-10 year projection. I get to sleep at night. That's how it makes me feel. I don't have one less thing to worry about other than a flat tire on the bike when I go for a ride.
According to Forbes, 52% of people who have a financial plan in place say they are very confident about their investments and the management of their money. Only 30% of people without a plan say they are confident. Keep dreaming, but also keep making sure you're taking the steps to be prepared.
I've worked my whole life, and this is the payoff.
For Your Money, Your Wealth, I'm Lynn Stewart.
Flat tire, right?
Yeah,
There's a
no
lot of
good.
flat tires
I
that
want
some
to
people
be
like.
on that cruise. That looked pretty good.
Yeah, they look nice. Hey, a couple of things. This is one thing that I want everyone to do is really to take a dry run through of your retirement. And it's really easy to do. So I want you to first start to take a look and start gathering documents, first of all, to figure out exactly, all right, well, what's going to come to you as Social Security? How much fixed income do you have? And then if you have a pension, make sure that you add those dollars up too. So you take your Social Security and then you take your pension amount, add that together, figure out what that total is. And then you look at your investable assets. How much money you have in IRAs, retirement accounts, 401ks, 403bs, whatever it is, and take 4% of that. So in this example, let's say you have $20,000 that is coming to you in Social Security, $20,000 in pension, that's $40,000. Now, if you've saved $500,000, take 4% of that, that's another 20 grand. So what your paycheck is going to be in retirement is going to be $60,000. If you can live off of $60,000, well, then now you're on the road to financial independence. If you only have $100,000 saved, take 4% of that 100, so that's $4,000. So if I take 20,000 Social Security, 20,000 pensions, plus the 4% of that 100 would be 44. If you cannot live off of that 44,000, now you have work to do. Now you got to figure this out. All right, how much more should I be saving? Can I extend my overall work life, increase my Social Security benefit because I'm delaying it, plus I'm not taking assets out of my portfolio, maybe I'm saving a little bit more. There's little levers that you can pull here to get you on track. That's the first step. Anything in life you want to do is practice. This is a good dry run through, Al, when you look at retirement. Am I on track? Can I live off of basically the assets that I have today? If I can't, then you know what work needs to be done.
It's funny, Joe, that simple calculation that we just did, very few people do, so they have really no idea what they should be living off of in retirement or what they can live off of. And of course, the next step to this is, what are you actually spending? Do you know what you spend? And I'll tell you, if you just sit down and add up a couple expenses, you're probably way short. Here's probably a better way to do it. If you don't have a detailed budget, take a look at your net pay. Let's say it's $3,000 per paycheck. Let's say you get paid twice a year, so that's 24 paychecks, so that's $72,000 that you may be spending right now. And of course, that's if you're not saving anything over and above your current net pay. You may be saving into a 401k, and that's fine. But if you're spending what's coming to you as your paycheck, then you have a pretty good idea that's what you're spending. So in our example, if you're spending $72,000 and you have $62,000 or $60,000 available to you, well, you're short about $12,000. So you're going to either have to work more or cut your bills or something to make that all work.
Yeah, or something in between too,
Yeah,
right? So it's like, all right, well, here, maybe I work one more year longer. That's going to shorten your life expectancy, right? That's going to take less money from your portfolio for that 1 year. You can delay Social Security. So there's a lot of different levers that you can pull right in that red zone as you approach retirement. Hey, we got to take a short break. When we get back, we're going to dive into a lot more of this stuff. What questions that you need to ask yourself before you retire? It's going to be great, folks. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. We'll be back in just a second. no one got hurt
No.
in those videos.
Yeah. You know what? Retirement is risky, Joe, right? I mean, you're going to have a lot more time and do some of the things you want to do. I think that surfing one was me, come to think of it. So
Let's go to the true false.
all right. When I am estimating my expenses during retirement, I can assume my tax bracket will be lower in my retirement years than in my working years.
That means extra low.
Extra low.
Yeah.
Wow,
super low.
that's a kind of a trick one. I would say it could be true, it could be false, depending upon your situation.
I would say most people watching this television program right now, I would say that's false, but I would say most of the population, the answer is yes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right, because you got 70% of the population that has $50,000 saved.
Yeah, we just saw that, right? So if you have
So yes, if they'll be in a definitely lower tax bracket because there's really no assets potentially to tax, right? So.
Yeah, no income. And if you have saved, let's say you have a lot of money in your 401k or your IRAs, then chances are with required minimum distributions at age 70 and a half, pensions, Social Security, you may be in a higher bracket.
Right. You got to be very careful with that assumption, too. It's like, all right, well, here, I want to spend $100,000 a year, but my Social Security is only $20,000. Of course, I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket, but I want to replace my paycheck. If every last dollar to replace that $80,000 is coming from a retirement account, it's taxed just like your paycheck without FICA tax. So the chances for that individual being in a lower tax bracket is probably not true. So just be careful with that assumption that you'll be in a lower tax bracket, because in a lot of cases, you will be surprised on how much tax that you pay.
Yeah, and Joe, and it comes down to if you've done the right thing, if you've saved like you've been told, you may be in a higher tax bracket, so just be careful there. But now, at this point in the show, we actually, on the street, we asked a question, and we call this Countdown to Retirement.
For Al and Joe, this is Hal Williams. I have to do mandatory withdrawals from IRAs and not Roths, but 401s in 1 year. And I'm worried about that, how I'm going to manage it.
All right, that's what Al was just talking about. 70 and a half, we are required by law to start taking distributions from a retirement account if you are separated from service. A couple of different caveats to that rule, Al. So your required beginning date actually starts April 1st, the year after you turn 70 and a half. So you got to figure out when you turn 70 and a half, and you can wait an extra year to actually start taking those distributions. When you do that, you actually have to take 2 distributions. But that might help you in that previous year if you're still working or if you have high income. One of the things that you can do to reduce that is you can start doing Roth IRA conversions, taking some of that money out, because you know you're going to have to take the distribution anyway, pay a little bit of tax, and move that into a Roth IRA. As you noted, there is no required distribution in a Roth IRA. That money will continue to grow 100% tax-free for your life and your kids' life. Yes, if you've managed your money quite well, and if you have a lot of money in these retirement accounts, yes, the RMDs sometimes is a big tax burden.
Very good, Joe, and I completely agree with everything that you said. So 70 and a half, that's kind of D-Day, if you will, in terms of when you have to start pulling money out of those retirement accounts. Now, it's also why a lot of times we'll talk about getting more money to a Roth IRA, converting from a regular IRA to a Roth IRA. Yes, you pay taxes when you do the conversion. You want to do it systematically and slowly so that you can end up not in higher tax brackets, but that's what will allow you to have more control over your taxes in the future. Another thing is Social Security, because Social Security, we know that you can start collecting it as early as age 62, but as late as age 70. And if you wait till age 70, it's a lot higher benefit, as you can see in this example. Now, your full retirement age is about 66 years of age, actually 66 and 2 months this year. But here's an example of someone at full retirement age that would receive $1,000. If they take it at age 62, it would be $750 a month, but if they wait till age 70, $1,320.
Right, if you take a look at this number and you wait to here, right, that's a 73% increase in your overall benefit. And I know what a lot of you are thinking is that, well, here, those are a lot of years that I could be collecting income.
Sure.
And this is a very tough decision for a lot of you, right? It's like, well, here, Joe, Al, it's sitting right in front of me. I want to take that money. It's mine. I want to start collecting it. But if you continue to wait, you get a higher benefit. but bird in the hand is a little bit better for a lot of you. So that's why most people still take it as soon as you can get it. There are reasons why you might want to take it early.
Yeah, and I think you start out, if you're out of work and you need the income, that's right off the bat. That's a source of income. Let's say you're in poor health or you have an impaired life expectancy, so you don't feel like you're going to be benefiting from those higher payments later on. Take the money now. And in some cases, Joe, some people that have saved and have good income are worried about means testing for Social Security, which simply means that at age 70 and a half, or age 62 to 70, there might be a calculation so that if you make a lot of income, maybe you can't take Social Security. That's not true now, but there's discussion that that may happen in the future.
It's like Medicare. As your income increases, your Medicare premiums increase as well. So you look at, okay, well here, maybe I have a lot of other income sources coming, and if I'm collecting Social Security, they might decrease that benefit. And I know what some of you savvy investors are thinking too. You're like, hey, if I take that at 62 and invest it, I might be better off. Well, we've run some numbers. It might not be as well as you think, because once you reach full retirement age and then you delay that, you get an 8% delayed retirement credit. For a lot of you, it probably makes sense if you live until normal life expectancy to delay, right? So, of course, there's a lot of different caveats here, but if you're in good health, if you're going to live until 85, 90, 95, why take it early? A lot of you will probably continue to be active and working still until your 70s. You want to increase that permanent monthly benefit. Also, when it comes to spousal benefits or survivor benefits, right, the person with the larger benefit might want to delay, because this is basically longevity insurance. So if I have a lot larger benefit, right, and if I'm married, if I were to pass away, then the surviving spouse gets the larger of the two benefit. So the spouse that has the most benefits should delay as long as they possibly can, because then that's more of an insurance policy, if you will, for the surviving spouse. So again, there's so many different combinations to look at when you come to a claiming strategy. So that's why you have to take a look at all sorts of different areas.
Well, you do, Joe, and then alongside with that is taxation.
Right.
Because with taxation, a lot of us feel like we're going to be in a lower bracket and we don't worry about it, but others that have saved are going to be actually in a pretty high bracket. So here's some thoughts for you, which is consider your retirement withdrawal sequence. MRDs, minimum required distributions out of your IRA taxable accounts, tax deferred, tax exempt. A lot of accountants will say, well, go ahead and take your taxable accounts first. In other words, outside of retirement, use those up and then go to your IRAs. We don't think that's necessarily the best strategy, because you may be in an artificially low bracket now and a very high bracket later. We think you want to balance that out.
Right, because everything's coordinated, right? You have to take a look at your Social Security benefits. You have to take a look at your required minimum distributions. You have to take a look if you have assets outside, what that capital gains tax is going to look like. And then you can kind of combine that strategy together to get the optimal income that you need with the least amount of tax and the least amount of risk possible. But you can't look at each of these things in a silo, such as, all right, well, here's where I'm going to claim my Social Security benefits. Right? No, you have to take a look at your tax situation, your retirement accounts versus non-retirement accounts, Roth accounts, and blah, 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 right? I'm just talking in tongues here. It gets complicated. This is one of the most important decisions that you ever need to make in your entire life when it comes to money. You want to make sure that you have a plan in place and look at all the different aspects of this. Healthcare costs. You've all seen this statistic before, $260,000, right? I think this statistic drives me nuts too, Al, because people think, man, I need $260,000. Well, this is what, from Fidelity. And basically what they're saying is a married couple is probably going to be about $5,000 out of pocket for each person
per
for
year.
the next 20 years.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so you don't necessarily need a lump sum, but over your retirement, maybe a 20-year period, you might expect to pay about $10,000 a year.
Sure, like
times 20, 25, whatever. So that's how they get the $260,000. And one thing about that, Joe, is it doesn't include long-term care. So for those that need long-term care stays, and it's a lot of you, then that's extra money still out of your pocket.
That is true, Alan. Very true. All right, we got to take a break. When we get back, we're going to flip the show back to you, and what we're going to do is answer your email questions. We got some great ones today, so you don't want to miss this. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. We'll see you in a second. Hey, welcome back to the show. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. Joe Anderson, Big Al, hanging out, trying to prepare you for retirement in a little bit different way of asking specific questions before you take that plunge. Hopefully it's helping you out. Before we wrap the show up, Let's see how you did on the true-false question.
Working during my 70s, I can still take advantage of my employer's 401k plan. Well, that's true. That's a true statement. As long as you're still working, have earned income, your employer has a 401k, you can still contribute to it. You can also still contribute to a Roth IRA based upon income limitations. If your income's too high, there's issues. You cannot contribute to an IRA, Joe, and that's kind of a strange rule. You can contribute to a Roth and a 401k, but not an IRA.
Yeah, and a couple of things. You do not have to take a required minimum distribution out of that 401k unless you're an owner of the company, if it's a single 401k. But if you're an employee of a larger company and you're contributing to that 401k, your required distribution doesn't start until you retire. So some strategy around that is to take all your other retirement accounts and plop that into that 401k plan so you can defer your required minimum distribution out until you actually retire. So you're not taking a distribution, paying tax on that, plus you still have income. Then you're funding the 401k plan. It can kind of be a mess. Clean that stuff up. You can move it all into the 401k. All right, let's switch the show back to you. We got a couple good email questions. Let's start there.
This is Betsy Benita. My company is offering a year of salary, $75,000 to me if I retire now. If I accept, that would mean I would receive $5,000 less per year with my pension. Which option is best for me in the long term? I'm 59 years old and I'm in good health. Wow, that's a great question, Joe. And you and I were kind of chatting about something like this before the break. So what do you think?
Well, there's a reason why they come up with $75,000, first of all. So you have to ask yourself a lot of different questions. But let's just look at this specific question in a bubble. That's $75,000. So what the company does is says, all right, well, an average life expectancy of an individual at age 60 is age 85. She's in good health. Then they say, well, I'm going to take away $5,000 from you over that time period, but I'll give you $75,000 today. So you have to look at what that present value is of the $5,000 cash flow stream over the rest of your life. And in most cases, depending on what discount rate that you use, 4 or 5%, guess what? It's going to equal anywhere between $70,000 and $78,000. So it's kind of a wash. So the questions that Al and I would ask you is that, do you want to retire, right? Why retire if you don't want to? You're 59, you're young, right? Continue to work. So then your pension still will be higher. You're not taking distributions from your account. But if you hate your job, you want to retire, you want to travel the world, well then retire. That decision-making point is mute, in my opinion. Is that a mute? Mute?
Moot?
What?
Mute is when you can't speak.
Well, yeah, I can't speak right now. There you go. There you have it. What, is it moot? Mute? I don't know.
But yeah, but that is, I mean, and plus, Joe, the other part of this is it's really hard to answer a question like that without knowing more about someone's situation. For example, if that pension is enough to cover your expenses and you want to retire, go for it. But if it's nowhere near enough to cover your expenses, maybe you need to work longer to get your Social Security higher and your savings higher and all kinds of things.
Let's go to the next email question.
Liz in Solana Beach, how do I know how much to estimate for healthcare expenses for my husband and myself in retirement? We just looked at that last segment. Fidelity says it's $260,000 for the average 65-year-old couple. And that doesn't mean you have to necessarily have a lump sum, but plan for those expenses over the long term.
That's average. So, I mean, are you good health, bad health? You know, some of you might be a little bit more than that. Some of you might be a little bit less. But, you know, look at $10,000 to $15,000 per year. All right, let's go to the last one and wrap this show up. What do we got?
All right, I think this is Bill Point Loma. I'm in my early 50s. What type of risk should I be taking on my portfolio? Right now, I'm saving about $200,000, or my savings has about a $200,000 shortfall of what I need to retire by age 67. That's about a 5-minute answer, Joe. You do it in 10 seconds.
Yeah, all right, so Bill, how do you know that you have a $200,000 shortfall? I'm not sure where you got that number. What type of risks should you be taking? Well, you need to get $200,000 in a couple of months. I don't know. You have to have a globally diversified portfolio, probably have a little bit more equity than bond, and hopefully that the world doesn't blow up on you. How about that? Sorry, we have out of time. I wish I had more time to answer that question, but I would definitely dive deeper into that particular answer. All right, that's it for us. For Big Al Clopine, I'm Joe Anderson. We'll see you again next week. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. Oh, boy. Cheers.